28,000 Russian soldiers were killed or wounded in June. Now, for some context, that's more casualties than the U.S. suffered over 20 years in Afghanistan, which is no wonder that there's more and more rumors about Russian mobilization. Now, this is happening alongside the ongoing Ukrainian middle and deep strike campaign, so it's not as though they said, let's stop killing the soldiers at the front and focus on the refineries. No, the refineries are getting hit every day. The ships in the Sea of Azov and the trucks trying to supply the front are getting hit every day. On top of that, Ukraine is racking up kills all along the front. According to the Ukrainian Defense Minister Fedorov, he said, quote, over the course of the month, the defense forces hit more than 200,000 enemy targets. The number of targets hit at a distance of more than 50 kilometers has almost doubled. He says the main focus is on the enemy's logistics. Destroying warehouses, transport, and supply routes reduces the enemy's ability to supply its units. The amount of drone strikes happening every day has long since become overwhelming. It is a shocking amount. The ones that we're seeing primarily are when a ship gets hit or when a plane gets hit in Crimea or air defense assets. But every single day there are hundreds, if not more, videos coming out showing FPV or bomber strikes against Russian soldiers. To that end, Fedorov said in June, the Ukrainian military eliminated or seriously wounded almost 28,000 Russian soldiers. So the comparison with Afghanistan is around 24,000. 25,000 American service members killed or wounded during that war. But that is all casualties, according to, let me make sure I have the source correct here. This is the Defense Casualty Analysis System. So from the Pentagon, that's the number they come up with. The 28,000 coming from Ukraine is all verified on video and is killed or seriously wounded. So not just a ruptured eardrum or maybe a minor shrapnel wound, but 28,000 out of the fight. On top of that, Ukraine says they hit a record number of enemy artillery and a record number of enemy vehicles and motorcycles, as well as intercepting 49,575 enemy drones. The best result ever, they say. Again, there are drones everywhere at all times along a massive front. I still don't know that those of us not engaged in this war and like along the front lines fully understand the volume of drones flying overhead at any given point. Now, I want to be able to do some sort of one-to-one comparison. Say, here are the Ukrainian stats and here are the Russian stats. The thing is, Ukraine is keeping a much better public tally of this information. Russia is not. Now, on the one hand, Ukraine has the unmanned systems forces, and they're kind of rolling up all of that data, again, verified on video. So there's kind of one place you can look for the vast majority of Ukrainian drone strikes. But even that doesn't count all of the units, which makes up the majority of the army, that are not technically under the unmanned systems forces. That's only a couple of units. Russia has some dedicated units as well. Rubicon is one. It is their largest dedicated drone unit, and it is their most advanced and most successful drone unit or unmanned systems unit in the Russian military. They put out their June numbers, and I'll put them on the screen here. They said they carried out 109,000 combat missions, so drone flights, saying they eliminated, it does not clarify whether this is just killed or seriously wounded or killed or wounded at all, but the number they give is 807 Ukrainian soldiers. So real quick, 807 from Rubicon versus 28,000 for the Ukrainian unmanned systems forces. Now, Rubicon's focus has largely been on other things. You'll see that as we go through here. They say they hit, not clear that they're counting these as destroyed or damaged, but 13 tanks, 191 armored personnel carriers, which raises some suspicion. You know, there's a lot of Russian drone footage here as well that we've seen. I don't know that I can vouch for 6 APCs getting destroyed or significantly damaged every day in the course of June. That seems a bit excessive. Either way, 12 armored transports, 30 self-propelled artillery systems, 51 towed artillery systems, 5 multiple launch rocket systems, 128 motor vehicles, and 794 automotive vehicles. No, I don't know what the difference is between those last two. I saw motor vehicles and thought 128 is actually kind of low for the number of trucks we've seen targeted, but I don't know, roll those two together and it's maybe motor vehicles or ATVs. I don't know, motorcycles as well? Your guess is as good as mine. Either way, a lot of kind of non-traditional military vehicles being targeted there as well, which is why we're fundraising for more trucks for Ukraine. More on that here at the back half of today's video. Now, if we can do some sort of one-to-one comparison, we're going to grab a random Ukrainian unit. I thought, why not grab the alpha unit of the SBU because they ranked first among the defense forces of Ukraine for the fourth month in a row. So we'll do a little side-by-side comparison here. The top Ukrainian drone unit with the top Russian drone unit. SBU released their footage as well, saying that in June alone, they neutralized, killed, or seriously wounded over 5,500 Russian soldiers. One unit. That is insane, the volume that these guys are flying drones. 5,500 Russian soldiers killed or seriously wounded by one Ukrainian unit in the month of June. On top of that, they say they destroyed 78, and I should note here, they say destroyed, not targeted, not hit, not damaged, destroyed. 78 artillery systems and self-propelled howitzers, 34 radar and electronic warfare systems, 33 armored vehicles, including 7 tanks, 16 multiple launch rocket systems, and 14 air defense systems. Again, that is one unit, one out of the entirety of the Ukrainian armed forces, the top-ranked unit when it comes to what they've been able to affect on the battlefield, but nonetheless, one unit. Now, that 5,500 Russian soldiers killed or wounded by simply Alpha this past month gives you an idea as to why mobilization might actually be in the cards for Russia. And we're hearing more and more about this, including on Russian channels, where Officer at the Front, a Russian mill blogger, just said, quote, "Mobilization is coming. All plans for receiving mobilized personnel for the end of September, beginning of October, are already in place in military districts, military formations, units, and subunits." That's a lot of what we're getting at this point. No official word from the Russian government, but a lot of rumors and a lot of speculation that that's the direction this is headed. Officer at the Front cites the July 5th statement from Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov saying that the SMO, or Special Military Operation as they refer to it, has now become a war. He said that wasn't by mistake. Those words actually mean things. The specific phrase here from Peskov was, quote, "Everything started as a special military operation but turned into a war." The Russian mill blogger says to declare a general mobilization, a declaration of martial law is required. And this is possible only in the conduct of a war to protect the state from an external threat. And we're seeing a lot of analysis look at that terminology specifically. Again, go back over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, Russia has not been slipping up. They don't accidentally say special military operation in the same sentence accidentally say war. There's been kind of a squashing of anybody that ever tries to compare this to a war. That's not what it is. Come on. It's a special military operation that is costing them more soldiers in 30 days than the United States lost in 20 years of Afghanistan. That is hard to grasp. But either way, the fact that you have somebody whose job is effective communication on behalf of the Kremlin, Peskov, he doesn't accidentally say a word like, "This is a war," all right? So it's entirely possible that mobilization is on the horizon. Now, I know folks will look at this and they'll say, personnel taken out of the fight. Fine, Russia has more people. So this is just a matter of grinding down the Ukrainian armed forces and taking more territory. So let's take a look at the territory that has changed control over the course of June. We've got a couple different sources here, one Ukrainian and one Russian, starting with the Ukrainian source, Deep State. We regularly use their maps for our updates here. They have an analysis team as well. They say, according to our map, the increase in occupied territories in June was 84 square kilometers. At the same time, there's practically nothing to show about the successes of the Ukrainian Defense Forces, and if we take into account how much we liberated last month, the enemy will have a negative number for the second time in a row. What they're saying there is a lot of these Ukrainian counterattacks have not been publicized. There's a lot of rumors of a couple different locations that Ukraine has pushed back, and they have not made it public because it puts Russia in a difficult position. I mean, we saw this up in Kupiansk, and there's rumors of it happening in Zaporizhia and elsewhere, where the Russian chain of command is reporting success, and Ukraine kind of exploited that and said, "No, you haven't," and they, showed proof. We're actually in the area you said you took, but there's some talk right now that Ukraine is instead being silent and saying, if we just don't announce that we retook that area, Russia's not going to announce it. They're not going to announce any failures, so they'll be able to continue to build and build and build. So that's what they're getting at, is Deep State saying, so far, none of the Ukrainian advances have been mapped. They added an interesting fact is that the number of assault operations has increased again, this time by 4.4%. But as we explained earlier, this is related to the quality of these attacks. Very often, only one Russian goes on an assault. So there's interesting stats in tracking the number of attacks that take place all across the front, and something that they're accounting for, but we're seeing a rise in the number of attacks. So it makes it seem like a sector is, very, very hot. And it is. I don't want to downplay it, but instead it's not, one after the other, squad, platoon, certainly company-sized assaults. In many cases, these assaults, for lack of a better term, is one soldier trying to conduct infiltration operations, that tactic that we've seen Russia carry out now for some time. Now, I mentioned that we have a Russian source here as well, looking at territory that's changed control in the month of June. Creamy Caprice, which I don't pick the names, they do. That's one. Anyways, Russian mill blogger here said, quote, and he rolls this up every month, every day almost. I mean, at least every 3 days, we see an update from this blogger talking about the Russian rate of advance over a shorter period of time and how much they've gained or lost, although, they tend to not map the losses. So this is constantly being updated. He said, quote, by the end of June, the total area of territories under the control of the Russian armed forces increased by 112 square kilometers. So 112 compared to deep state saying 84, 30-kilometer difference on or about. But the big picture here is how little that is. All right. So don't go with the 84 if you want. Go with the Russian source saying 112. And if we look at that, according to Russian sources, that is the least amount of territory gained in a single month since June of 2024. You have to go back 2 years to find when Russia was moving this slowly across the battlefield. And we have to take into consideration the losses that they are suffering to do so. Again, if we tie all this together, 28,000 Russian soldiers killed or seriously wounded in the month of June, alongside the Russian number of 112 square kilometers gained, means that every square kilometer costs 250 Russians. That is staggering. The losses, the casualties, the lack of advance, just talk about a meat grinder. I mean, you can call that whatever you want, but when it costs 250 soldiers that are out of the fight, they're not coming back for 1 square kilometer, just moving on Sloviansk, just taking the rest of Konstantinivka, just moving through the rest of the Donbass, all of a sudden, those casualties start to become hard to imagine, is probably the best way to put it. So Russia is slowing down largely due to the increased effectiveness of Ukrainian drone strikes. And what we should expect to see here in the coming weeks and months is an even slower Russian advance as the logistics strikes that Ukraine is carrying out in the deep, or especially across the middle strike campaign, start to have their effects on the front. Fewer supplies moving to the front, less fuel moving to the front, fewer troop rotations coming to the front means slower and slower advances. And June already was a pretty significant downgrade for the Russian military. Now, I do want to provide a quick update on a fundraiser, Car for Ukraine, we're working with all year. We have just about completed our summer campaign. Last I checked, we were at like 94,000 euros out of a 97,000 euro goal. So this is probably going to be wrapped up here in the next 1, 2, 3 days. Incredible work. I just got word a couple days ago, a video that we still need to do some blurring work on, but nonetheless, the newest vehicle, the 20th truck, has been delivered, this one to the 225th Separate Assault Regiment. So incredible work, everyone. We're going to wrap up the summer campaign. It will continue to be live for the course of the next couple months, and probably September, October, we'll come back with another campaign to kind of wrap this thing up and get the Seraphims, the 2nd Battalion, 104th Territorial Defense Brigade, fully outfitted with a fleet of trucks from you all. So to learn more about that campaign or donate, if interested, that'll be in the pinned comment and description below. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.